¿Algo más que quieras
And the
decir?
the thing that makes me happy about it is when I can help people get their papers. That is very rewarding. That's
Help me
very
out.
rewarding. And a lot of people I cannot help, but the ones that I can.
Okay, so you want to start a question?
Yes, ma'am. So before we get started, my name is Aysia Gilbert with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. Today is July 13th, 2021, and I am interviewing Miss Patricia Ice at
Miss
The MIRO offices?
Yeah,
MIRO offices.
Mississippi Immigrants Rights Alliance.
Mississippi Immigrants Rights Alliance. All right.
MIRO.
Jackson, Mississippi.
Yes, and today I am here
Give
with
you my card.
So this is part of the Mississippi Freedom Project trip. My name is Rachel Hujsa, Hujsa.
Brittany Clarke.
I didn't know my husband had all this candy in his
So we do want to get to know a little bit more about you. So when and where were you born?
I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1953. So I'm 67,
Oh, yes.
almost 68. October 8th, 1953.
Wow. October babies.
Yes. And if you and there's another story that I tell. My parents lived in Mound Bayou, Mississippi. Have you heard of Mound Bayou? It's in the delta of Mississippi. It's about 2.5 hours from here. They were there. They are not from there. I don't have any relatives from here that I know of. But my father was a doctor. I think I told you all that out there. And he graduated from medical school in the 40s. And so he wanted to be a surgeon. And so it was very hard back then for Black doctors to get residencies. And so he went to Meharry Medical College. That he graduated from Wayne State University. He was the only Black man in his class. But Meharry Medical College is a predominantly Black medical school. And they had residencies for surgeons in Mound Bayou, Mississippi. And so my parents were there for about 3 years. And I have 2 older sisters, and they were already alive, and they were there. And then the residencies for the doctors, they end July 1st. And so my parents, when the residency ended, they left, went back to Detroit, which is where we were all from, and I was born there. So the joke in our family, which was probably not a joke, but is that I was conceived in Mississippi. So when I decided to move here, I was like, well, I got roots here. Even though I never lived outside the womb here. But and my mother, who was still alive then, she said, well, things have changed in the South. It's probably better now. And she was very encouraging about me coming here. So that was good, because if she had not been encouraged, but my mother was extremely adventurous. And so I really didn't expect her to say anything besides that, that I should come on. And I came, and I was terrified, when I moved here. I remember I drove here by myself from Detroit. And I arrived in Mississippi. Well, I arrived at my job on February 2nd. And I was supposed to be here in January. But I was so afraid to come. I read Mississippi Burning and, all these other nonfiction books about Mississippi. And they were scary. And so, so I didn't even come in January when I was supposed to. So I got here on February 2nd, but I drove 13 hours the first day from Detroit to the state line, which is really near Memphis. It's Memphis is on the state line, and South Haven is in Mississippi. So South Haven and Memphis share the state line, and you can't even tell really when you're crossing the state line, except there is a sign, I think, that says welcome. But so I crossed into Mississippi, and I was really nervous. And I said, well, I'm just going to spend the night here because I still had 3 more hours to go, and I had driven 13 hours. Mm-hmm. And so I spent the night, and it was fine. You know, there was a white guy at the desk, a young white guy, and I was like, oh no, he's going to treat me really badly. But he didn't. He was nice. And so everything, you know, so when I got into the state, the only bad thing was that I was late to my job. I knew that I'm late all the time, but I was late to my job. And then, you know, I had stuff that I had brought with me. I drove straight to my job.
Wow.
Because I was supposed to be there by 10, and I think I got there by 1 or something like that. But anyway, and as I told you out there, I wasn't there long because less than a year later, I got there February 2nd, 1998. And a few months later, somebody, I guess it was in the fall, this nun walks in, comes up to the reference desk. I was a reference librarian, and asked me and said, I heard you know about immigration law. And I told her yes. She said, the dean sent me here. And I said, yes, I'm the only one in the building, I think. And a few months later, well, by May of the next year, I was gone. Mm-hmm. And working with her. Actually, the Catholics were not paying me. Mm-hmm. She hated for me to say that. Oh. But it was true. The Catholics were not paying me, but they did offer me an office with a desk at the Catholic Charities office. Mm-hmm. But the United Methodists, they also had a mission out in Scott County, and I met the woman running that. And they did pay me, so that was good, but I was only getting like $1,200 a month. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, my car was paid off. The apartment only cost about $500 a month. And so, you know, financially, I was okay. But that's a long answer to where were you born and when were you born? I was born, I didn't forget the question. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. That's my home.
So I wanted to ask you more about your dad, actually, because I know it's not common for people of color to be doctors in the 1940s. So I was wondering how he got into the profession and how that inspired you as a child, probably, too.
It really inspired me. And actually, I have a picture of his license and stuff here.
We would love to see that.
Yeah, it's not on this wall in the office over there. My father was born in Memphis, supposedly, and I guess he really was. I've seen a birth certificate, but it's a delayed birth certificate. Mm-hmm. And on one of the censuses, it has him being born in Alabama. Mm-hmm. But I think he probably was born in Memphis. And he was the 7th child of all the children in his family. And they moved to Detroit. He was 2 when he moved to Detroit in 1918. Oh, wow. And so he was born in 1916. Mm-hmm. So his mother died in the flu epidemic, which is why I always get a flu shot and why I always get a flu shot. Anyway, she died in the flu epidemic of 1918. And so his father was still alive, so my father was raised by his brothers and sisters and his father, who I don't know if he raised him so much, but he was there and he never remarried. So my father said to me that he said in school, my father went to a mixed school. Mm-hmm. He grew up in a small town called Hamtramck, Michigan, Hamtramck. So Hamtramck is inside of Detroit, at least on 3 sides. And it was mostly Polish back then. And Catholic and my parents were not Catholic, but it was Catholic and Polish. And what I've learned about Hamtramck is that there were always a lot of immigrants there. Even today, there are all these immigrants there. And it's interesting because they're mostly from the Middle East. There are a lot of people from Yemen there. And I have clients from Yemen here. And all of them know somebody there.
Oh, wow.
Which is really ironic.
Yeah.
Which is really
Small
ironic.
world.
So he grew up there, and he told me that in school, I don't know if this story is true, but maybe, he said, well, one day they passed around a list, and I wanted to, and it said that a list of careers, and the person that made the most money was a doctor. That's what he said, was a surgeon. And so he said, so that's what I wanted to be. And unfortunately, he was very smart. His sisters and brothers really encouraged him. And he, so he finished high school. He was a very good student, and he went to medical school. Back then, medical school didn't cost very much. And so I know Wayne didn't cost very much to go to. And he went to Wayne undergraduate and Wayne medical school. And I know when he graduated from high school, he knew people from the Rotary Club. Have you all heard of the Rotaries? They gave him his high school graduation suit. That is something that he told me. And he also told me, he talked to us a lot because he said, I never remember having a conversation with my father. That's what my father told me. He said, so I want to talk to you all as much as possible. So there were 3 girls, and he did talk to us, and a lot. And my mother, they met when she was in college. They met at an NAACP party in probably the late they got married in 1943, and they knew each other for several years. I think in the 30s, in the late 30s, they met at an NAACP. My mother said it was an NAACP Youth Council, and it was in Detroit, and it was at the Black Y. They probably called it the Colored Y then, YWCA. The Lucy Thurman Y is the name of that Y. It doesn't exist anymore, but I used to go. They used to take us there to eat and all that. Okay, so that's where they met, and my father always said, and I was the entertainment because he sang, and he sang very well. And so they met there, and he said, he always told us, and I said, I'm going to marry that woman. And so they got married. My mother lived in Detroit. She didn't live in Hamtramck. She lived in Detroit in an area that they call Black Bottom. It doesn't exist anymore in Detroit. But I don't know whether you've heard of the boxer Joe Louis. He lived there. He lived in that neighborhood. I think he had moved from the South. Everybody moved from the South. Because even my mother's side, they moved to Detroit in 1924 from Georgia. But my parents were different in that they never went to visit the South. After they moved up there, I had friends in school who would go visit their grandmother or go visit somebody in the South every summer. And I used to be envious of them because all my relatives moved up there. The relatives that I had, they all moved up there. I never went to Georgia. I've never been to the place where my mother was born. I've been to Memphis, but other than that, I haven't been there to where they were born. So anyway, so he went to college. I think he probably got some money from the Rotary, but maybe not. And as I said, it didn't cost very much. He was the only Black man in his class. He told me that the people used to not want to study with him and all that. It was hard for him to get the books. So when I was in law school, he always made sure I had my books, always. He said I didn't have books when I was in school, and he said, and the white people wouldn't share them with me. So I don't know what he read or what, I don't remember that part of the story. But anyway, so he graduated, and he he and my mother got married just before he graduated. They got married on December 28th, 1942. And I have a picture of their wedding. They got married in a church wedding. And my mother was the only girl in her family. So I think her parents went all out as they could go back then, because that was right after the Depression and all of that. And she went to college. My mother went to college, which was rare, and finished. Back then, though, it was wartime. And so I think that both of my parents got their bachelor's degrees in 3 years. And then I think my father's undergraduate and graduate, his medical school was combined. I think it was all combined. And I think he got it in 7 years. So my mother went, and she majored in education. She wanted to major in business education, which back then was like shorthand, typing. She wanted to teach those subjects, but they would not let her major in that. She said, they told me there were no colored high school teachers at the time at all. There were no, those are the words she used, there were no colored high school teachers in the early 1940s. She said, and so they told me I couldn't major in it. I said, they actually just said that to you? And she said, yeah, that's how they said it. There's no colored high schools here, so you won't be able to get a job. So, but she still got the degree. And actually recently I found her degree. My mother died 6 years ago. She was 93 when she died. Wow. My father was 65 when he died, so he's been dead for a while. But anyway, so she majored in education, but I think she was probably in elementary education. I don't think she ever liked that, because she wanted to teach shorthand and all this stuff and typing and all that. And so she did teach elementary school. She didn't teach that many years. I think she told me that it was about 12 years total that she taught. And because I think she didn't want to teach. I think she never liked teaching elementary school. She never said that. But my mother, I could tell you all this stuff, so much stuff. My mother told me, and this is something that I'll always cherish that she told me, is that women should always have their own money. She said, your mother told you that too? Yes, my mom did. Yes, ma'am. She said women should have their own, should have their own money. So I always wanted to work. My father did not want her to work. He didn't, I guess those 12 years that she taught, he didn't want her to do it. But because as wonderful a person as my father was, and he was a wonderful man, he was, what do they call it? He was patriarchal, or he wanted chauvinistic. That's a word. He was a chauvinist in that he felt women should have children, and get married, have children. And the one regret that he had is that none of us got married. No, my middle sister, she got married before he died. But the marriage didn't last. And none of us have had children. So, and my father used to call me up. I'm a graduate of Spelman College in Atlanta. Wow. And my father used to call me up and say, I'm 65. Well, he wasn't 65 because he died at 65. I'm 60 something years old, and I don't have any grandchildren. He used to say that. And he used to tell me, the only thing you need to do is just get married and have children. He supported me in school. He paid for all of our school. But I think he thought college was enough. And but I had other ideas. And so did my elder sister, who is, she's about 9 years older than I am. So she went to medical school, and he supported her. He paid for her. Now, back then, the medical school, I think she went to Howard Medical School. Wow. And I think she said that it was about $50 a semester. It was
Wow.
very cheap.
I wish.
It was very
School was
cheap.
$50 a
was-
semester.
Inflation.
Yeah.
That was in the 60s. She went in.
Still. Still.
I know, isn't
Still,
it? Isn't
yeah,
it
that is-
terrible?
Maybe
Well,
like
yeah.
$200.
but when I went to law school, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I ever saw the bill, but I'm pretty sure it was about $1,000 a
I
semester.
still wish I could
I
go
know.
for $1,000.
I know,
Yeah.
because I think it's a sin. I don't know a better word for it, but I think it's a sin that people have to pay so much money to go to school.
Yeah.
I do not envy you all at all, you know, because
Yeah.
it's so expensive. Unless you get a scholarship,
Yep.
you know, but most people are not getting a scholarship. And it's so expensive. And I feel like I was so fortunate because my parents paid for me to go to college and to law school. When I got to college at Spelman, there were a lot of girls who were on financial aid. I was never on financial aid. And I used to wonder about it, you know, because one thing, my parents didn't want to show their taxes to anybody. And you had to fill out that form, that FAFSA or whatever.
Yes.
They had something like FAFSA back then. It may have had the same name. And my parents didn't want to show their taxes. So they wouldn't fill it out.
Oh.
They just wouldn't fill it out. And they paid for me. Then when I got to law school, they just paid. And my elder sister, like I said, she said it cost around $50 or something like that. I don't, it didn't cost very much.
Wow.
Oh my God.
And so, excuse me, so she, you can edit this, you can cut out stuff like that, or you're gonna keep the whole thing. Anyway, so she, you know, she finished medical school. She's done very well. Before you all leave, if you have time, in addition to showing you my dogs, there's a little video about my sister. She just sold her practice to this group. She's 76.
Wow. We'd love
And
to
she had her own practice,
Wow.
a pediatric practice.
Wow.
And so she made a very short video about that when she sold the practice. The people who bought the practice made this little video. So anyway, so she became a doctor. My parents were really happy. I became a lawyer, and I think I told you all, I thought about dropping out every semester because I didn't feel it was a good fit for me. And I still don't feel it's a good fit, but I've learned to live with it and I really liked working in the library and I liked teaching, but I could always make more money as a lawyer, and I still don't make very much money. I get here like $65,000 a year, and that just started a couple of years ago when I was getting 60. So I think that I'm the poorest lawyer. I'm the lowest paid lawyer in Mississippi. That's probably not true, but I don't make a lot. But I just do it. One reason I do this is because I told you some of the reasons, because I lived in other countries and I really like the law. It's very interesting. Immigration law is so complicated that it's interesting. And then my husband started this, and I was at the second meeting of the organization. I missed the first one because I was out of town. And so I went to the second one, and that's where I met him. And that, and we started going to the Capitol. Those were our dates, really going to the Capitol. We both actually had he had a girlfriend, I had a boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
My boyfriend was in California. His girlfriend was living in his house.
Oh.
Okay. He probably wouldn't be happy with me to tell. But anyway.
She's not his girlfriend anymore.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no. And somebody told me one day, one of my male friends who used to live here, he said, you shouldn't mess with that man. That girl, she'll come over and beat you up or something. I never have seen the woman. I have never. I met him in 2001. I met him 20 years ago. And she was from Gulfport. And he told me she went back to Gulfport. I've never seen the woman. The woman's never threatened me. You know, we started going out when she was still living there, I think. And but he told me, he said, I knew that I wasn't going to marry her. He said, and she never wanted to go any place, and he always wanted to go different places. And so he was glad that he met me, because I like to go places. And but anyway, so what was I forget the question now. You asked me about my father. Yes. So my father, he in 1953, he built a practice, and I have a little bit of information about that too, because there was an article. It was a flyer for a credit union. My mother was in the Detroit Teachers Credit Union, and she and his partner's wife, my father's partner's wife, they got the loan to build the building. And so they were very proud, that they were women and they were able to get this building. Well, they built it. They built it. And they paid for it because the credit union gave them a loan. And I knew that, but then I actually found the article about what actually happened. And I think I have that someplace here too. And and anyway, so they helped build the building, but their husbands worked there. And so my father was there for 20 years. And then my parents moved to Las Vegas. They threw a wrench into my life. I think they had been plotting it for several years. And then one day they came and announced to me, I was at Spelman and I was in my junior year. And they came and told me that they were moving to Las Vegas, and I thought it was a joke, but they moved there in 1973.
Yeah, why Vegas?
Well, because they wanted to leave Detroit. I think, Detroit was kind of going downhill. We had this big riot in 1967, and my father liked to play golf. But the major thing, I think he had a friend from that little town in Hamtramck who a black friend who he grew up with, who was a dentist, and he had moved out there. And so he told my father, you should move out
all
here.
About it, yeah.
And he did. He and my mother moved out there, and he opened an office there. He did not retire.
And what type of doctor was he?
He was a surgeon. He was a general. He was a general surgeon. So, and my mother had stopped working. And so he moved out there. He opened an office and everything. He was in his 50s because he died at 65, and they had lived there 9 years when he died. And so he was very successful. He became the first black president of the Clarke County Medical Society. Clarke County is where Las Vegas is in Clarke County. So not the whole state medical society, but the Clarke County Medical Society, which was really a big deal because Las Vegas is the biggest city there.
Right. It's like
Las Vegas is the main city. Right. I mean, the capital is Carson City, which is up north. I've never even been there. And Reno is up there too. And he helped start, in fact, I just recently, I didn't print it out, but I got it on my phone, a lot of stuff about his life, because I was out in Las Vegas. We have a condo out there. My mother continued to live there after he died. And my sister bought her a condo. And so we still, my sister owns the condo, my doctor's sister, but she's very generous, and she's unable to walk right now. She's still going to work and stuff, but she's basically in a wheelchair. So I don't know if she'll ever go back out there. I hope she does, but she is very generous with my other sister and I. So we go out there, and so I was out there in March. And in June, just last month. Wow. I was out there last month. And there was a story I was going to tell you. I have I'm a sorority girl. I'm a Delta.
Wow. Yeah. I was gonna ask when you said Spelman. I was gonna ask if you.
But you know what? When I went to Spelman, sororities weren't allowed.
Wow.
But the dean let us pledge because she was a Delta. And later I found out that my mother was an AKA.
Oh wow.
And later I found out that some of my classmates became AKAs our senior year.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about it. I probably would have been an AKA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid to say that on camera. But anyway, I probably would have been one.
Legacy.
Like my mother.
Mm-hmm.
But both my sisters are also Deltas, and they went to Fisk. They went to Fisk in Nashville.
Wow.
So anyway, what was I talking about before then?
The condo in Las Vegas.
Yeah, so I was out there, and one of my line sisters from Delta,
Mm-hmm.
she moved out there. She was from New Jersey, and she moved out there in '96, and so we hooked up. I hadn't seen her in all those years, but we've had some Zoom meetings and stuff of our line, and so we went out to a couple of concerts together.
Oh, fun.
And so she lives out there, and I was really happy to see her, that we spent a lot of time. And it was so funny because she sat down and she told me, now this has happened since then. I've had all these kind of jobs. I've had children. My husband was abusive, so I left and I moved out here and blah, blah, blah. And she said, and that's my life. That's my life. So she graduated. She was a year ahead of me. Mm-hmm. So she's probably 69 right now. I'm almost 68. My birthday's in October. Mm-hmm. So I'll be 68. But anyway, so my parents moved out there. My father opened a practice, and then he got sick. Mm-hmm. And he passed away. So before he passed away, I had always wanted to be a Peace Corps volunteer. Mm-hmm. In the 60s, they used to have all these commercials about Peace Corps. That's when we only had 3 TV stations. We had 3 networks, ABC, CBS, NBC. Mm-hmm. But in Detroit, we had a 4th, which was CKLW, which was Canadian. Because Detroit is on the Canadian border. Yeah. Right, Detroit is right on the Canadian border. So we used to go there a lot, and we had a TV station from there. And so they used to have these ads for the Peace Corps. And I said, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. And it had always been in my mind. And so when he died, I said, I better do this because life is not promised. Mm-hmm. Life is really short. And I always wanted to do it. So I applied for it and I got in. And that was one of the greatest things that I've ever done in my life. Wow. And I've made a lot of friends through there. I've met people here who are, who we call ourselves Returned Peace Corps volunteers. So it's RPCV for short. Mm-hmm. And it was a wonderful experience. It was wonderful. And that gave me the courage to go do those other things that I told you about, mm-hmm. to go to the Philippines, to go to Haiti and Honduras. Mm-hmm. And so really that's the end of the story about my father. He died when he was 65. My mother kept living, and she kept living out there, and she lived until she was 93. Mm-hmm. We had to eventually move her to Detroit mm-hmm. with my older sister, because it got to the point where she was getting dementia. Mm. And so she couldn't stay out in Las Vegas by herself. But since the condo belonged to my sister, she just kept it. Mm-hmm. And then I have another sister.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, her name is Pamela. My older sister is named Anne Murray. Mm-hmm. ANNE-MARE with an accent over the E, like
that's
Renee.
Very pretty. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, my mother said she heard it in a French movie. I don't think that's the way that they spelled it, but that's the way that she spelled it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the way she heard it. That's the way she spelled it. So Pamela is my middle sister who lives in Dallas, Texas, and Pamela was born in Nashville when my father was doing his residency through Meharry. She was born there, and she is 4 years older than 4.5, something like that, years older than I am. So she is a retired educator. Okay. She taught and worked at a community college for like 30 something years. Wow. And she retired about 3 years ago, maybe 4, I don't know. I think about 3, as a humanities teacher. But before that, she also was a news reporter. Wow. So she was the first Black female news reporter at WSM in Nashville, which is the station that Oprah started out at. Wow. And my sister always says, I should have been Oprah. I should have been Oprah. But Oprah's my age. So Oprah was a little bit younger. Oprah, I think she was born in 54. Mm-hmm. So she's not a whole year younger than I am. But anyway, my Pamela always says, I should have been Oprah. So my sisters and I are very close. And so my sister Pamela, she was out in Las Vegas with me in June. I speak to them every 2 weeks. Well, we decided to do it twice a month on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So we have a Zoom meeting and talk about our lives and everything. Mm-hmm. So that's really nice. So I met Bill, and I was married twice before. I don't want to talk about that because it was not a good thing.
Third time's a charm.
Sometimes. I married 2 African guys. One was one that I met when I was a Peace Corps volunteer. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, I met him in Michigan. And those were very short marriages. We didn't have any children. I don't have any children. Mm-hmm. Bill has 7 kids.
Wow.
Bill has 7 kids. And so here are his kids. I just gave him this for Father's Day. Aww. I gave him this picture. 2 of these people are not his kids. These 2 are not his. Those are his only niece and nephew. Aww. And then the little ones are his grandchildren. Yeah, we've got 7 grandchildren. Yeah. All the grandchildren.
Wow. Bonus,
and
the
dad
bonus
said he
kids.
didn't have any grandkids.
Right.
Right. Well, we weren't married then.
He never got to.
No, he never got to. He never met Bill. So.
Well, now he does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Bill's children are very nice to me. Mm-hmm. These are the oldest grandchildren. So the funeral that he's going to is for these boys' father. Oh. He was his stepfather, but from the time he was little. And then the 2 boys, they're his natural kids. Mm-hmm. And then these 2 girls are Bill's oldest daughter's children. Mm-hmm. And this one graduated last year from Reed College in Oregon. And this one's about to start at San Francisco State.
Wow.
Because they all live in California. Mm-hmm. Bill was a 4th generation California.
Wow.
And so, so I met him at a meeting of the first MIRO meeting. We didn't know we were going to call it MIRO. I think I told you a little bit about him. Nothing earth-shattering, except that we got to, we met and we went to the Capitol a lot because we were trying to get driver's licenses for undocumented people. Mm-hmm. And we could never do it. We still don't have that law, but we helped defeat about 300 anti-immigrant bills. He may have told you all that this morning. And we did that through education. We would talk to the legislators and, and we got the Black legislators on our side and a few of the white ones, mostly Democrats. We even had some Republicans, but maybe only 1 or 2, not too many. But yes.
Oh, I wanted to know what the biggest pushback was from legislative with the things that you guys were pushing for.
Oh, they just, some of them seem to just be scared. They seem to, because they knew that some people were undocumented. Well, they knew that the people who had no driver's license were undocumented. And I think that they felt afraid that their friends and the government, because it's mostly Republican here, the governor and all them, that they would get a lot of pushback from the other people. And I remember one person, I don't know if Bill told you this story, but one guy who was in the state legislature, and I don't remember who it was. I don't remember if he's still there. He was an insurance agent, and he was a Republican, and he was all for giving the driver's licenses because he thought he could make money off of the insurance, the auto insurance. He said they all got to get insurance, and that's great. But then he got scared. And he didn't, the others encouraged him to go against it. And so we could just never get it, In fact, we defeated a whole bunch of bills, but there was one bill that became law that we didn't defeat, and it was major. It's called the Mississippi Employment Protection Act that we didn't win, and it went into effect after the Arizona law. There was this big Arizona law, you all may be too young to remember it, that was just terrible, and an Alabama law that was really, really bad. And so we got this Mississippi Employment Protection Act, which that was a bill that made E-Verify mandatory here. Because have you all heard of the E-Verify? That's the law that says, and it's really a federal law, but it's not enforced everywhere by the federal government. But it's E-Verify, and you may see at some businesses, like if you see their employment practices, that they have a sign that says, "We E-Verify everybody." So that means that they check to see that they have papers. And so we have an E-Verify law here in Mississippi that says that every employee is supposed to be checked for papers through the USCIS E-Verify system. And but the thing is that they have never created an enforcement mechanism for that. So a lot of people don't even know we have it. I know that a lot of employers here in Mississippi don't know that they're supposed to do that. And, but some of them do. And so they, especially government agencies and, state government agencies, they all know they're supposed to do it because it's a state law. So we lost big on that one. And part of that law was that if you worked without authorization, that you could get fined like $10,000 or go to prison. But nobody ever got fined or went to prison under that. That part of the law still exists, but that part was nullified basically by the Supreme Court cases about Arizona and Alabama, because I think the Arizona one actually went to the Supreme Court. And so once that got struck down, then nobody was trying to arrest anybody under that law. I think our governor then, who was a Democrat, I think he tried to arrest some people at that time, but I don't think that went forward. So, I knew I don't really know this governor now that we have. He's a young guy and I don't really know him, but the previous ones, they all knew us and didn't like us. They hated to see us coming. Phil Bryant was the last one that we had that was there for 8 years. This governor is in his first term. His name is Tate Reeves. But I remember going to Phil Bryant's office before he was the governor, when he was the lieutenant governor. And I was talking to his secretary, And we had a long talk, and she said, I don't know why they're so against you. You're really a nice person. And so I said, I know that they know me and they've been talking about us, you know, but this is a small state, you know, it's not Florida. It's very small, which is a good thing in some ways. I would rather not live here, but this is where I am. And my husband would rather live here. And so, you know, as long as he's here, I'm going to be here. But I do think, I do want to move into that condo in Las Vegas. And so I'm thinking about, you know, ways that I can go back and forth. Because we're probably going to keep the condo. Everybody wants to buy the condo. Because it's small, but it's very nice. What did you say?
Keep it.
Yeah, we are. Because my older sister, I think that she was thinking about selling, the one who owns it, Anne Marie, she was thinking about selling it. And my other sister and I said, please don't sell it. Because we like going out there. And it's nice. It's in a nice neighborhood. There are a lot of services around, the grocery store, all that kind of stuff. It's really nice. They have a pool there. And so, you know, but the property is worth over $200,000 now. She paid a lot less for that, but I think we're going to keep it. I think she said, "Don't worry, I'm not gonna sell it." My other sister Pamela said, "Well, why don't you put our names on the deed?"
Right.
But anyway, right? I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not worried about it because I'm very close to both my sisters, and I lived with my elder sister for years, for like 20 years. Wow. And she's not going to tell me that she's going to do something when she's not, and then not do it. So anyway, I've told you about my sisters, about me, about I have some good friends. Sometimes I mention them. We call ourselves the Detroit Diva something. We've known each other since we were elementary school.
Oh, wow.
I have a picture of us. We've known each other, and we're going to New York on a trip. There's 7 of us.
Wow.
In the end of October. I think I'm going to make my reservation today. Yes. Yeah. And then I'm also going with my Spelman class. I'm going to New York twice. Wow. I don't really want to do that, but my Spelman class, we always go on a trip almost every year.
Wow.
And so we're going to New York too. We're going to New York first, and then we're going with with this group of 7. So we were all born at the same time. Not all born in Detroit, but everybody was there really early, early in age. And so I don't really have very many friends here. It's been very hard to make friends here. Mm-hmm. I came here in my 40s as a single person, no kids, and it's been very hard. And I think there are several reasons why. The other day I was listening to somebody who said, well, it's just hard to make friends when you're an adult anyway. So I think that's one thing. And then I'm married to a white guy, which I think somebody told me one day, she just told me, I think people should marry their own kind. Mm-hmm. This was a black person that told me this. And so I think that people are really surprised that, especially in my age group, it's just something that a lot of people didn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I think they don't understand it or whatever. And then they also don't understand my work. Mm-hmm. Because who is it in there? Somebody in there. Was it you? No. Somebody in the room here today.
Asked about, I believe it was.
Yeah, she said, well, what do people think about? She said, because a lot of black people, don't like immigrants. I mean, that is true. That a lot, and people have asked me about that, and it's just, I don't know. they don't really criticize me. They probably criticize me behind my back. Like, what is she helping those immigrants for? They probably say stuff like that and other worse stuff. But some of them, though, think it's wonderful, that I'm doing this kind of work, because I'm the only Black person in the state that is doing this full time.
Wow.
And I know I'm the only. Now, if there are Black people doing it, I don't know them. And I'm in the American Immigration Lawyers Association. And we have a chapter, a Mid-South chapter here. Well, it covers 5 states, though, because it covers Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, what else is close to Tennessee and Kentucky.
Is it like the Delta region?
No, not really. I mean, Kentucky's further north, and it covers Kentucky. I don't know how Kentucky got into it, but because Kentucky used to be part of the immigration, the immigration region, but now it's not part of our immigration region, but it's still in our organization.
That's odd. Okay.
It is. But I know a lot of people in Florida is starting to. I don't know a lot of lawyers and immigration lawyers, but I meet them because we have these conferences every year. So I meet them from all over the place, and we have a group. It's a listserv, really. It's really just a listserv, and it's called the African Diaspora Interest Group, and it's part of AILA. And I'm the coordinator for it.
Awesome.
That's really
And so I've gotten to meet other Black lawyers from different places, and they asked me, meaning the leadership of AILA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, which has 16,000 members.
Wow.
The higher ups have taken a lot of notice of me, and so they invited me to be on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and I got to meet other people through that committee. It's been a lot of fun, actually. And so in June, when we had our national conference, it was virtual. And so I did a continuing legal education session, and I got a lot of nice compliments from that, from doing that. And then AILA, we have our first Black president.
Wow.
The organization is 75 years old.
Wow.
So we got our first Black president, who is a male, who is a Morehouse graduate.
Wow.
He's 30 years younger than I am, but maybe less than 30, but he's not very old. He's also gay.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if he's the first gay president. I think he is, because I've been in the organization a long time, but he's definitely the first Black president. And so we've known each other. We've seen each other at the meetings and stuff. And so he has encouraged me to do a lot of things. And the media, whenever in the Jackson area anyway, whenever there's any discussion about immigration in the national media, they call us. So I've been on TV, I've been on the radio, I've had a lot of opportunities here with my career. And that's been kind of fun, to do that.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to become an
immigration lawyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I mentioned at the table,
Yes.
it's not that much, it's not, but you wanted it on tape. So I told you that I got to travel.
Yeah.
And my first trip outside the United States was really to Canada, which was just across the Detroit River.
Same.
But then our high school trip was to London, England.
Wow.
And so, and I think about that trip, it cost like $350 for the whole trip. That was for airfare. That was for hotel. It was for about 8 days.
I'm so jealous.
And that's how much it cost. About
I think mine was 2000 when we went in high school.
Wow.
Really, 2000?
Or maybe
Yeah.
like it was a lot of money.
We did not go anywhere.
Right. We thought 300 something was a lot.
Right.
You did, and some of us went to London. Some of us went to the Bahamas. I guess on a cruise.
Wow.
But I was fortunate, and I went to London. But I wasn't so fortunate because it was years and years before I went to the Bahamas. I didn't get to the Bahamas until I was in my late 50s or 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but I did finally get there.
Mm-hmm.
Even my Girl Scout troop, I was in Girl Scouts till I graduated from high school, from
Wow.
7th grade through high school. And my Girl Scout troop, they went to Mexico City.
Wow.
And we were still in high school. I was maybe 16 or so. I chose not to go. And for a stupid reason, which I won't say on tape. And so I never went to Mexico until after I had been to Honduras. I mean, I hadn't even been to Mexico when I went to Honduras. And I never thought that I would be in a Spanish-speaking country like that. Because I had chosen Haiti to go to. And then, I ended up in Honduras. I didn't speak Spanish. I was by myself. With Peace Corps, in Peace Corps, you're with a bunch of people. And you have an office and everything. But that trip, I went by myself. And I had somebody at the embassy who was supposed to be my liaison. Because it wasn't a Fulbright, but it was like a Fulbright. And so Fulbright is administered through the United States government, and so was my program. And so when we had the coup d'etat, when they had the coup d'etat in Haiti, my liaison left the country before I left the country.
Oh.
I called her one day. I said, "What are you doing?" It was after the shooting had started and everything. She said, "Girl, I'm packing." She was African American. She said, "Girl, I'm packing." I said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going home, girl. They're sending everybody home. Everybody who doesn't have to be here, they're sending us home." And I said, "Well, I'm still here." Right. Fortunately, I had a very persistent mother who was living in Las Vegas and who called Harry Reid. You all have heard of Harry Reid. He was you're not familiar with him. He was the Senate Majority Leader in Congress. He's retired. He's still alive.
He's a Democrat.
Yeah, he's a Democrat.
He looks like Mitch McConnell. Like they kind of look.
But his ideas are totally different.
Thank goodness.
He's very pro-immigrant and very progressive and all that.
Good.
But anyway, he's retired. He's getting old now. But my mother called him and called his office and called him until she got me out of the country.
That's awesome.
And I had to leave on a Haitian Airlines. I think it was called Trans Haiti or something, because all of the U.S. airlines stopped flying there.
Wow.
I think I had a return ticket on American, but I couldn't use it because
they weren't even.
nobody, the airport was basically shut down except for this, the Haitian Airlines. And everybody was trying to get out of there. Everybody who had a visa, who could go to the United States, who could go to Miami, was out of there because the flight's very short, So speaking of trips, you probably heard about the shooting in Haiti, right, of the president? Okay, but another thing that's happening is in Cuba.
Yeah, right.
And Bill and I were fortunate enough to go to Cuba.
Oh, recently?
Yeah, we went to Cuba in 2019. We went to Cuba. And that was really, really exciting. I ended up going twice to Cuba. But anyway, that was really interesting. And because I've been there, because I've been to Havana, I've been watching all this stuff on TV, and it's kind of, it's kind of sad. But Haiti is real sad. Haiti is real sad. It was sad when I went there, and I think it got sadder because they had that earthquake. And you all probably know Haitians because there are a lot of them in Florida.
A lot of my friends are Haitian.
Right, a lot of them in Florida. So, question, what was the last question? I think,
I just
no,
wanted,
she asked me the last question. No,
yes,
you did.
What inspired you to become an immigration attorney?
Yeah.
Okay. So my travels to the countries that I mentioned, starting with England. When I was in high school, I thought that was just about the most exciting trip I had ever taken. Back then, you all have heard of the Beatles.
Yes.
I used to love the Beatles. We have a picture of them on the wall, right outside this door. I know, I keep pointing. Right outside this door, if you open the door, there's a picture of them. And I loved them. You know, I loved them. And I was like a teenager when they came.
When did you go to London?
In 71.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite song of theirs?
Oh, that's hard.
That is hard. I like
Favorite
a lot
song,
of them.
yeah.
I can't think of the one that I sang. My father audio taped us like at every holiday when our family was together, and he has me on one of those audio tapes singing, "She was just 17.
I was just thinking that one in my mind.
What I mean."
I was
and the
just
way
thinking that
she
one.
looked was way beyond compare. Anyway, so I like a lot of their songs. I like a lot of them. And so I went, that was my first trip on a plane overseas. And then, you know, my other trips to Africa and the other places. And when I was in Africa, I was only in Nigeria for about an hour.
Oh, wow.
Later, they closed the border and I could never go.
Aw.
Because we couldn't afford to fly. We were Peace Corps volunteers. We didn't get money. It was only about an hour. The border was only about an hour away. And I think Lagos was maybe 2 hours away. And so we couldn't fly. So we never got to go, except I went this one time when I wasn't supposed to go during our training. They took all of our, Peace Corps took our passports away so that they could get stamped with our work visas in them. And they said, "Don't leave the country." Who left the country? I left the country. I never told them that, but because they would have kicked me out. They were real strict with their rules. But I did cross one time when I didn't have my passport and the border was open, and somebody said, "Oh, just come with us and just don't say anything so that they can't hear your accent or anything." And I went, I didn't say anything until I got there, and we went to this little cafe and had I probably had Coke or something like that. And then I went back. So I spent about an hour there. But I went to Ghana. I love Ghana. That's probably one of my favorite African countries. And I went to Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, and Togo. Togo bordered on Benin, so I went there a lot because at the time, Benin was a Marxist-Leninist country at the time. We didn't have an ambassador there. We had what they called the chargé d'affaires, because they were so-called communists. We weren't supposed to have the governments didn't have good relations, but they still let Peace Corps go there. And so, so that was kind of an issue when I was there, because you weren't free to talk about the president, even if you said something good about the president. Everybody was afraid for you to say anything about him. But Togo was freer. Yes, come in.
I think you're the last one to be interviewed, so just wrapping it up whenever you're...
Okay.
Oh.
So Togo was the freest. And so we went, and you could take a taxi there because the countries are small. And so we were we as volunteers, we used to go there all the time. And they were capitalist, and they had more, you could buy more things and stuff like that. So we would go there. So those are the countries I went to in West Africa. And then I've never been to East Africa, to Kenya and places like that. I want to go there.
How long were you there?
2 years.
Wow.
2 straight years, a little more than 2 years. And then I did make it to South Africa.
Okay.
So, in fact, Bill and I, when we met in 2001, later on that year, there was the United Nations World Conference Against Racism. And there's some flyers, posters out there about that. And so we went there together. We went there, we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. And we had met in January, and that was in August.
Wow.
So we flew over there, and then we came back on September 10th, a day before September 11th.
Wow.
And I was so glad we had made it back into the United States, because a lot of people got stranded over there
Yeah.
and had to go to Europe or had to go someplace else. But anyway, that was a wonderful trip. I don't know if any of you have been to South Africa. It's very, we went, that was 2001. So Nelson Mandela had gotten out of prison like 10 years before, something like 10 years before. And I had seen him. He came to Detroit after he got out of prison. And when I was in grad school from 87 to 89 with my linguistics degree. And I took a lot of classes on Africa. And so I had some South African young people in my class, and they would say, oh, he's never going to get out of jail. He was in jail. That was a huge thing back then. Come on in. We're wrapping up.
We have to go. Oh.
We're wrapping up. What did he say?
I'm not sure.
No, he just went like
He's just letting us.
Kind of pointed there outside, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got to see him in person, but from really far away, because we were at the baseball stadium. But I got to meet Winnie Mandela when I was in South Africa, but they had already divorced.
Yeah.
But I met her. I shook her hand and everything.
Yeah, I know.
I shook her hand and everything. That was exciting. But, what I was going to say, this will be the last thing. My classmates who were South African, they used to say, he's never going to get out of jail. They're going to keep him in jail. He's going to die in jail. And our professor, who was a history professor, she said, no, he's going to get out. She said, I have seen what the Europeans, because I think she was born in Europe, in London or someplace. She said, I saw the British colonize all these places and all these countries, because she was born in Africa, actually. And she said, and I've seen everything change. I remember when when all those countries became independent. She said, and he's going to get out of jail. And like less than 2 years after I graduated with that degree, I watched him walk out on TV.
Right.
So I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you so much.
I know a lot of positive things can happen, and I'm hoping that with all this voting stuff, which has made me very, very upset,
Yes.
that we can get that straightened out, and that we can get rid of Trumpian ideas.
Yes.
And we can have a society where everybody's voting, and that they will give you a glass of water if you're standing in line for a long time. Because that is just so upsetting to me. It's just so upsetting to me.
Definitely.
Would it be possible for us to go to the other room to look at the images on your
Camera?
dad, on your father?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to?
And I'm going to show you.
Is it okay if I just stabilize it and walk it over there?
I was gonna say we can.
Oh, okay.
Want me to hold this? You can help her.
It's real loud out there. So it's just like.
Okay.
It shouldn't be real loud now, because if they're outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will show you that. And I will take a minute or less to show you my dogs.
Yes, I'm so excited to see.
Well, I wanted to ask you. You said
Y'all can call me too.
That's true, but you said you were interested in women's rights, and I was wondering.
Very, very much so.
Have you had a combination of women's and immigrant.
Well, one thing is that, wait a minute, there should, 322 photos. Okay, I won't show you all of them, but if you scroll through, you'll see some of my dogs.
Oh my gosh. They're
Look at this. Oh,
You
I
can
didn't
scroll.
mean to.
No, that's okay. This is the one that's now old and had surgery and can't see.
Adorable.
This is, that's my little schnauzer.
Adorable.
Oh, that's Charity. Her name is, my dog's names are Faith, Hope, and Charity.
Oh, I love that.
And that one was Justice.
I love that.
Okay, and there's a cute picture of Charity.
Oh,
She's so cute. Oops, I'm sorry, I dropped
I love
it.
her coat. It's so pretty.
And Hope. In fact, these pictures were taken here. If you look at the floor, you'll see that these pictures.
I think it's.
Oh, I don't want to delete it.
Yeah.
Let me show you the most. Oh, this is a little video. This is when Justice was still alive.
Adorable.
Justice died in 2017. So this is when those two were together. We always like to have two dogs at the same time so that they'll have a companion, and they really seem to like that. Let me show you. We had on 4th of July. We had a parade in my neighborhood, in this neighborhood, and so Charity was sort of in the parade.
Okay. And did you want to walk over to the room?
Yes, I'm going to walk over there.
Okay.
That picture I love. She's so cute.
Oh.
And then here is Faith. Here's the boy.
Oh.
He just got a haircut.
Yeah,
He looks much
it's very
better now.
cute.
He looks much better.
Very cute.
And here's him after. I think this is after the haircut.
So adorable.
Yeah, that is after the haircut. Because actually he was here. Luis took that picture. Luis, who works with us, he took that picture. Okay, let me go and show you some of that stuff.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be right behind you guys.
Okay.
I hope I can find it easily. I think I can. When I was in the condo in Las Vegas earlier this year, I found my mother's degree.
Wow.
From college. I had never seen
education?
it. I had never seen it before. And it was in all these papers.
Excuse me?
You'll let me take one.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
We're heading into
Excuse me? Sorry. No, you're okay. You can come in with us.
I'm so sorry that this is
She's showing
crazy.
Oh, no such thing. It's not character. That's what it is.
Oh, you have Malcolm X.
Where?
Yeah.
You have a picture with Obama.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And I have one with just the two of us.
Wow.
I didn't tell you that story.
I
And
love
that-
your dress.
And that was my wedding dress.
I love it.
The top, my wedding dress had a top and a bottom, skirt. That's that dog again. That's Justice again. And so he came here in 2004 before he was a senator. He was running for senator. And so the people the Democrats here had a party for him. And they a prayer breakfast. It wasn't a party. It was a prayer breakfast right here, right on these grounds. Wow. This was totally different then. And Bill and I had been married a few months, and we went. And so somebody took that picture, and I was like, I lost the picture. I didn't know where it was. And then the man ran for president, and I said, I better go find that picture.
This is
and I found it. And I took this picture in Benin.
It's a beautiful picture.
Yes.
I love that picture. I still remember those girls. So let me see what I can find here. I don't know whatever happened to those girls, but I can still see them. I think this is the license, my dad's license.
Yeah, we did.
Wow.
Thank you for showing us. That's amazing.
1950.
That's when he got his license
Wow.
here. And it was by reciprocity because he was already licensed in Michigan.
Wow.
So he was here 3 years, and then I was born. Here's another copy of that. And then here's my parents' wedding.
Oh, and you also, your wedding photo as well. Oh, I think it might have been your parents that you were going to show us.
I have a wedding photo someplace.
Oh.
I probably have a wedding photo on my, and here's my father's degree.
Wow, this is so pretty.
They want to see all this stuff.
All right. Luis wants us to come up for
A picture.
a picture.
Wow.
That's his MD degree. That's my father's MD degree
Yes.
from Wayne State University.
Yeah.
Awesome.
1943. The only black man in his class. There was a woman who came who my father always said, but she was a transfer student. She didn't start with us, but she did graduate.
Here you go. These are both his degree and your their picture.
Yes. These were in, so that was December 28th, 1942. My mother said it was the worst day, weather-wise, of the year. Detroit is real cold in the winter. And she said it snowed and snowed. And it was so awful that day.
Well, thank you for showing us all
Yeah.
of this.
Can we take a picture of you, like in your office? Just like a
Yes.
powder picture.
Oh, how about in front of
those
this?
degrees?
In front of
Where all
the
the magic happens.
in front of the Supreme Court.
And the thing that makes me happy about it is when I can help people get their papers. That is very rewarding. Can you help me out? And a lot of people I cannot help, but the ones that I can help.